I want to start off by talking about potential new models out of Tesla, because that was the headline that a lot of the media came away with. Early next year, maybe late this year, we could see new models, but detail very, very vague. Let me see. Executives really danced around the multiple questions on that on the analyst call, and eventually Elon Musk himself just shut it all down. So what are you expecting in terms of cheaper, newer models?
So, Paul, I guess to start out some context, the timing piece is important. I want to highlight that they have talked in the last 6 months being between some growth curves. They're in this EV winter right now, and they've talked about the importance of this next generation platform. This is 3 months ago. And so the talk of them on the call today, just moving that time frame up by 9 months, is reaffirming to those Tesla investors that, in fact, we're going to reaccelerate growth earlier than what had been expected, call it 3 quarters early. So that's one piece of it. The second is this unanswered component to it, which is what is actually going on with their, like, what are these cars going to look like? And as you said, they shut it down, but there was just this sliver of information that Elon gave. He said that when he was talking about the robo-taxi, and the question came up on the call, is this related to the robo-taxi? And he said, I'm not going to answer questions. I've said what I'm going to say and wait till August 8th to hear more. And so based on that, you can read between the lines. They're probably going to talk about the robo-taxi as this next-gen car on August 8th. It's hard to believe that they think that they can get that car out and approved within a year, but this is Tesla, and they make big, bold predictions.
Yeah, to give a bit of context around that, it took 4 years for the Cybertruck to go from announcement to actual delivery, but Tesla says it's not going to need a new factory to do this. Does that give you any clues?
It does. I mean, I think that they can build this car. They can get this car to market from in the next year. I think that that's very possible. That's different than in 2019 when he talked about 1 million robo-taxis on the road at the end of the year. They had basically very limited production at that time. And so I think that that dynamic is different. The piece that doesn't quite sit well with me is just there's the side of building the technology and there's the side of getting approval. They did mention that a few states have made that approval and they expect more to come. But to me, that's probably the biggest bottleneck. I think that them manufacturing those at their existing facility does increase the probability. And let me cut to the chase on my bottom line here is they're not going to get a car out. They're not going to get a robo-taxi out in a year, but they probably do in 2 years. And if they do that in 2 years, I think that shares go higher.
How much demand, though, do you think there would be for an autonomous self-driving car?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of demand. I think that not only will there be demand, I suspect that for safety reasons, that other car makers are going to be required to have autonomy. And to put it in a perspective, just some quick numbers, at least related to the U.S., is that 42,000 people lost their lives in 2023 from auto accidents. That's up from 37,000 in 2013. So over the past decade, that has surprisingly increased. Of course, the reason is people are distracted. So I think that the opportunity around just making cars safer is one big piece to this. The second is what's the market for people essentially moving around for much cheaper. Imagine using Lyft or Uber at a 50% reduction in the current price. And I think that that's very appealing. And Elon talked on the call about 7 to 10 million vehicles being autonomous. I think you can kind of throw those out the window. Who knows what the number is? But if they solve for autonomy, this will be a true breakthrough, a kind of a once in 100 years breakthrough in terms of how people move.
What do you think about the pricing of that as well? Because it seems like it'd be a more expensive vehicle, but at the same time, we've seen a really slack EV market and Tesla pushing through price cuts to try and regain market share or gain further market share.
So 2 topics when it comes to pricing. One is just the current pricing environment, and surprisingly, ASPs, despite what we've seen in those headline price cuts, average selling prices in the March quarter was flat. It was actually up 1% from the December quarter. And the Cybertruck kind of played in that higher trim Model Y. But so ASPs have been surprisingly stable given the overall environment. When it comes to the price of FSD, they've recently lowered that. And so they're making this available if you buy it up front for a third less, going from around $12,000 to $9,000 if you buy it up front. And so there are definitely some moving parts around autonomy and how people are buying it, whether it's upfront or through subscription. The simple takeaway is this, is that when you put all this together and think about a robo-taxi that has autonomy, the average price of that vehicle autonomously will be much less, call it 20, 30% less than the average price of a new car today, which at least in the US is kind of around $45,000. So I think pricing of these vehicles is going down, and I think that profitability can actually increase at the same time, given the potential around charging more for FSD long term.
Gene, one of the other things that Tesla talked about on this call was this idea of unboxed manufacturing and how that would revolutionize car production. What does that mean to you? What is it?
So if you think about the concept of how cars have been made, it's traditionally a manufacturing line. And essentially what unboxed means is that you are building these cars in these modules in the manufacturing facility. And so people kind of come to the car and add different parts to it. So it's just it's a different way. It's like flipping the whole manufacturing process. I'm sure Henry Ford is not feeling good about this concept, but it has the potential to meaningfully reduce the cost of building a car. And I think that Elon has talked over the years about being one of the competitive advantages of Tesla is building the machine that makes the machine, focusing on the factory piece. You don't hear about other car makers talking about this, but that is what is relevant to this whole unboxed approach. It's just a new paradigm in terms of manufacturing that can dramatically lower the cost, very similar to what the assembly line did 130 years ago.
We've got a chart here that shows short interest in Tesla stock. Been here before, haven't we? That's now at its highest in 2.5 years. And then today we saw the stock going up more than 12% after hours. Do you feel like the scene is set here for another big battle between the shorts and the true believers of Tesla? And what's your price outlook?
It's going to be an exciting 2 years, I would say, if you're an investor or if you're just a bystander watching this company progress, because one of two things is going to happen. This company is going to flourish, or this company is just going to be yet another automaker. And it is a very similar setup to what was going on in 2016, 2017, when they were trying to break through with Model 3 production. So this is not a bet the company on autonomy and the robo-taxi, but I would describe this as them being all in on that. And so to put it on the most basic level is that this comes down to, for investors, almost a religious question. Do you believe that the future is autonomous? If you think that electrification and autonomy is the future, Tesla by far is in the best position to capitalize on that. If you think that that future is further off, 10 years, 20 years off, then the stock's not going to do anything. And it is going to be really difficult to get those investors who are in those different camps to really think straight about what the other side is. So this is going to be a polarizing company, undoubtedly a polarizing stock for the next few years.